The 19th of June, 2026. It was supposed to be a perfect day to enjoy the Dragon Boat Festival under a fine breeze and crystal skies. Instead, Shift Up turned this year's festival into a total clown show, making it the perfect day to drag them a company that has stooped to unprecedented lows in both gaming and literary history out into the sunlight and rip them to shreds. Because just yesterday, on June 18th, Shift Up proved once again that as long as you possess human logic, you can never predict just how utterly despicable they can be. For a year and a half, every single update they serve up is a brand new masterpiece of disappointment. Their ability to disgust the players makes eating actual garbage look like a Michelin star feast. And let's be real, the absolute garbage they serve us in-game is far more nauseating than anything you'd find in a real dumpster. And I say unpredictable because every time we think they've hit rock bottom, we are forced to redefine our understanding of how low they can go. Then, the next update drops, and they completely shatter those expectations anyway. A stench so foul it would choke a dung beetle, corrode a septic tank, and make a sewage worker quit on the spot that is barely the tip of the Shift Up iceberg. June 18th was the culmination of a year and a half of SU breaking boundaries. Just when we thought we had seen the absolute bottom, they managed to disgust the entire livestream audience so badly that everyone flipped into full combat mode. Let this video be the reckoning. I am going to list the mortal sins Shift Up has committed so more players can see this company for what it truly is. First, sloth. For a company generating hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, their sheer laziness is a rare sight in the industry. As an anime-style game that debuted 3.5 years ago, they charged an arm and a leg for a gacha costume, yet there's zero improvement in interaction animations. In this cutthroat competitive market, other developers are more than eager to cram dozens of unique interactions and entire storylines into a skin that costs way less than what SU sells. Yet, SU refuses to do something as simple as splitting touch interactions between the upper and lower body. Even using the Chinese server as a benchmark, SU is lazy as hell. Months ago, Tencent implemented massive quality of life improvements for the player experience, such as moving the co-op and daily dispatch buttons, and adding the quick consulting feature. SU won't even copy-paste the code from Tencent, they just drag their feet and pretend nothing happened. Whenever a major update introduces game-breaking bugs, they either play dead or use the most lazy, scorched earth fixes. The ESC key causes crashes? Put a cooldown on the ESC key. COOP damage is bugged? Fine, shut down COOP entirely for 3 months. I swear, the day SU realizes their own existence is a bug to human, they'll delete themselves. Next, lust. They baited players in at launch by marketing jiggling assets, only to pivot later towards story seriousness. The frequency of high-quality live 2D artwork has plummeted. Meanwhile, they started introducing bosses designed to cause literal physiological disgust. The behemoth boss was a literal piece of crap. The twisted nature of the 3rd anniversary queen was bad enough, but the 2 latest bosses take the cake. They took 4 fan-favorite pilgrim characters and fused them into grotesque chimeras to act as villains. Look at this, Isabelle and Scarlet fused into this, Rapunzel and Noah fused into that. To make it worse, in the 3rd anniversary story, the queen just brutally beat 3 of them into near irreparable states. Now they are reduced to 3 brains in a jar, waiting for the main squad to build new bodies to revive them. Oh, you ask about Isabelle? She's dead into ashes. Not even a brain left, completely unrevivable. Imagine, in any other game, beloved characters get heavily wounded or killed in the boss fights, and immediately the villain uses their corpses to stitch together a chimera boss for you to fight, with mechanics that are just buffed versions of their original skills. That's disgusting enough on its own. But do you know what the ultimate fuck up was? In the developer interview, SU outright stated that these fused bosses were a tribute to the original characters. A tribute! Stitched together corpses are a tribute? Oh my god. Even if you wanted me to nitpick, I wouldn't even dare to claim that the Big Brother scene from Fullmetal Alchemist was a tribute to the little girl and her dog. Check out this video on Bilibili to find out how genuinely shell-shocked I was when watching this interview live. Then comes gluttony. In-game, we have custom modules Overload Rocks, which you get a tiny amount daily, but maximizing a character requires a mountain of them. Competitive, high-ranking players buy out every single pack containing these rocks. SU's corporate greed here is utterly repulsive. They once thought player demand for rocks had slowed down, so they released a $100 pack with 40 rocks. It sold out instantly, and what did SU do? They never brought that pack back. Instead, they kept pushing the old awful packs that give you 2 or 3 rocks for dozens of dollars. As for the feelings of the whales who got screwed over, SU only wants their money. They couldn't care less about what they think. Then we have arrogance. They look down on the player base and routinely humiliate them. Every other gacha game knows that the protagonist represents the player. Writing the protagonist well, both in terms of strength and emotional depth, is gacha 101. But this consensus doesn't exist for Shift Up. In last year's Christmas story, they wrote a total Karen character who single-handedly ruined the mood for an entire month, and when she finally died on the surface, the game literally forced the player to kowtow to her corpse 3 times. In the main story, a bratty villain named Leviathan has been annoying players for over 6 months. Every time she shows up in the main quest, she's just throwing tantrums. Even when the main squad wins, she refuses to back down just to spite the player. Later, she stabs the protagonist through the gut and brutally beats up other popular characters. And the resolution? She gets forgiven with zero punishment and completely whitewashed. To top it off, the head writer dropped this gem in an interview. She's cute? They genuinely believe they can devalue and ruin characters in the story on a whim, tell blatant lies in interviews and developer notes, and players will just unconditionally swallow it. These clowns always think they're in the right, habitually ignoring problems or shifting the blame onto the community. Here comes the crazy one, envy. In last year's popularity poll, the main character, Rappy, won first place. By design, she was supposed to get a top-tier skin accompanied by an exclusive story. Players were eagerly debating whether a nightgown or an oversized shirt would be more romantic. They could never have guessed that SU actually despises their own heroine. Seeing Rappy's immense popularity kept Shift up all night, so they committed the ultimate act of malice. In Rappy's exclusive victory skin story, they made her walk around the entire outpost in a skimpy nightgown voted on by the players. No matter what anyone says to her, she just meekly complied. Do you feel what that is? That is pure, unadulterated humiliation. It felt as if a random NPC walked by and cracked a sleazy joke. She'd have to just nod along. Rappy, a character who is usually serious, hardworking, and sheds blood on the surface as a legendary warrior, is forced to parade around the outpost where everyone knows her, wearing a nightgown in a story meant to celebrate her popularity. And after degrading her to this point, SU had the commander, which is the player, delivered the final blow. Facing her in this skimpy nightgown, the commander shows absolutely zero emotional reaction, hands her a bottle of water and says, "Good job." This is an insult to every single player. It proves that even if we love a character, vote for them, and spend money on them, SU will humiliate or kill them off whenever they feel like it. Like I mentioned before, they wrote a bunch of characters off in the 3rd anniversary Queen fight. Did they care about the players who loved them? Not a bit. Look at Marion, the winner of the first popularity poll. In the 3rd anniversary Queen fight, she got absolutely pummeled like trash. Her core was ripped out by the Queen, and she was left in a vegetative comatose state. The ultimate twist of the knife? SU let the commander saw her after the battle. Lore-wise, this is a long-awaited reunion between the commander and his first love. Any normal human would show an outpouring of emotion. Instead, SU made the commander just takes a glance and walks away with zero reaction. That's how SU treat the first champion in popularity poll. I don't even need to mention how other characters is being treated. Of course, greed cannot be missing. As a game that built its initial player base entirely on fan service and jiggle physics, the core audience is obviously male players who enjoy that content. Yet, starting from the 2.5 anniversary, SU began sabotaging their own formula. Perhaps they thought they were expanding their demographic to attract other audiences. They started cramming Yuri baits into the story and marginalizing the commander. When core players got upset and posted complaints, they were attacked by the toxic tourists brought in by this new marketing. It turned the community forums into a toxic cesspool, and what did SU do? They just pivoted to another demographic to stir up more infighting. Every single time, they choose the option that leaves everyone unhappy, while they hide backstage, watching the chaos with a smug, pathetic grin. The clearest proof of this? An entire year has passed, and SU hasn't released a single new character that the community actually accepts or embraces. In the year 3 popularity poll, the gap between first place Rappy and second place Cinderella was tiny. In the year 4 poll, Cinderella won by a massive landslide. Here's the catch. Over the past year, Cinderella barely appeared in the main story and had 0 event appearances. Theoretically, she was at a massive disadvantage against new characters who got tons of screen time in main chapters and events. Why did the poll turn out like this? Go question SU. Then, for the 3.5 anniversary, they forced an idol group into the game, and the event story was painfully idiocy. I really have to ask, how much overlap is there between the idol demographic and the current player base? An entire year has passed, they still haven't learned their lesson, and who knows what their next target is. This isn't expanding the player base, it's corporate suicide. The final sin is wrath. The definition of wrath includes a complete loss of emotional control and a blatant contempt for fairness and justice. Well, what a coincidence. In their story, good people are slaughtered and discarded like trash, while villains are treated with more reverence than their own parents. Livren annoyed players for chapters on end, and when she finally died, the writers forced her kind, innocent teammate to die with her as collateral. That sums up their writing perfectly. Look at Red Shoes, a Class A war criminal who actively defected to the enemy, embraced corruption, and directly or indirectly caused the deaths of hundreds of thousands of humans. Not only did she survive, but she got her consciousness uploaded to become an immortal, incorporeal digital lifeform. She gets to annoy you endlessly in the story, and you can't even touch her. Meanwhile, Isabel and Heron were turned to ash during the Queen fight with 0 chance of revival. Scarlet and Rapunzel, good people who fought on the surface for over half a century for humanity, one gets shattered into pieces across the floor, and the other is blasted so deep into the dirt she can't be pulled out. Liberio used to be a ferocious elite general on the Queen's side, moving across the battlefield with overwhelming power. Yet, after spending just a little time with the commander and falling head over heels for him, the very next second, right after she got rizzed up, the Queen literally rips her head off. The villains do whatever they want with zero consequences, while the heroes die horrific deaths in the gutter. This is the world SU has built, and it's a direct reflection of their own twisted psyche. As a bunch of total degenerates, they genuinely want a world where the wicked torment the innocent, and a hollow semblance of justice only arrives way too late as a meaningless gesture. Too bad reality doesn't work that way. So, they can only dump their toxic, pathetic ideologies into the game script to disgust the players. Haha, maybe some of you noticed. Everything I've described so far happened before June 18th. The reason why I say June 18th is Shift Up's Clown Festival is because on this exact day, every single one of SU's sins officially evolved to the next level. Every single sin worsened, transforming them into the ultimate clown developers. Here's Sloth Evolved. They finally officially announced their decision regarding Senti's favorite item bug, a bug discovered 4 months ago. After 4 months of fighting, Shift Up formally surrendered. Yes, they officially announced they lost to a bug in their own game. They decided to change Senti's favorite item effect entirely, removing the team-wide shield and replacing it with a team-wide ATK and advantage buff. This instantly turned her from a PvP staple who was useless in PvE into a meta-defining PvE buffer. This change caused an absolute uproar. After getting dragged across every major forum, SU announced a second defeat, delaying the favorite item adjustment. That alone is incredibly embarrassing, but nobody was prepared for the developer notes released shortly after. SU used over 2,300 words to explain their development process regarding Senti's favorite item, and it was nothing but talking in circles. The backlash happened because we didn't notify you in advance. Now that we've notified you, it will be implemented at the end of July. SU labeling energy feeding as unbalanced completely exposes how shallow their understanding of their own PvP meta is. They didn't even mention the actual bug that needed fixing, where the shield breaking fails to trigger health recovery. It makes you wonder if they even noticed it over the last 4 months. Check out this video on Bilibili for a full breakdown of the stream reaction to those notes. If you can read that developer's note without getting depressed, you have a mind of steel. Then, Lust evolved. In the event update on June 18th, Story 2 was finally unlocked, and the final boss was revealed. Take a look at this. What if I told you this thing is a fusion of Snow White and Heron? And what if I told you that Heron, just like Isabelle, is completely dead? In fact, Heron's so-called fusion consists of taking her iconic purple color palette, pasting it onto the space, and having the boss stepping on it. And let me remind you once again, SU explicitly stated in their interview that these fused bosses are a tribute to the original character. Are you kidding me? Imagine if Fate, Grand Order released a boss that was a grotesque fusion of Da Vinci and Dr. Roman. Imagine if Arknights fused Frost Nova and Kautze into a monster. Who would tolerate that? And this is already the 3rd time SU has pulled this stunt. Who wouldn't want to throw hands with the devs right now? I mentioned earlier that Gluttony was about them ruining the value of the rock packs. For this event, the rock packs are $30 for 3 rocks and $55 for 8 rocks. Let's look at some trivia. The old 40 rock pack put the price at $2.50 per rock. The monthly pack is $4 per rock. Custom pack 2 is $6.10, and custom pack 3 is $6.70. Now look at these event packs. $30 for 3 rocks and $55 for 8 rocks. They even put out this particular pack which showcases peak corporate greed. Anyone who plays the game knows that these 80 lock keys can lock substats a maximum of 4 times. If you are locking 2 stats, it's only 2 times, and they are charging a full $30 for it. They aren't even selling the actual rocks, just a loosely related lock key. If you want a definition of corporate greed that makes you want to vomit, this is it. Arrogance evolved. The writing for this new event is an absolute joke. It feels like the writers just wrote down whatever they dreamed about, assuming the players are idiots who won't notice anything. The logic is entirely broken, and power scaling has completely collapsed. Mustang allocates a massive budget to build giant robots just to shoot a movie. He demands that they must be real, functioning mechs, not models. And then these movie props are taken for a quick 20-minute combat modification, and suddenly they can go up to the surface and slaughter raptors? Does SU honestly not realize that treating the lore like a complete joke turns every single previous character into a clown? Going to the surface used to be a source of dread and despair. A vast, desolate wasteland devoid of human life, crawling with enemies. Teammates died easily, there was no retreat, ammo ran dry, and losing contact with the Ark was normal. Now you're telling me we could have just been piloting giant mechs this whole time? And look at Mustang's completely unhinged plan. A raptor blasts a hole through the top of the Ark and is about to invade. Mustang tells the entire population, don't worry, we're just shooting a movie. The raptors are just the villains in our theatrical release. And the citizens just accept it? Are you fucking kidding me? How absurd is this? The Raptors are literal killing machines built for war. They are breaking in, and if human loses, it's game over. Instead of issuing a wartime mobilization, you tell everyone it's a movie set? Following this narrative logic, if the people of the Ark are dumb enough to buy this, then the Raptors are basically just actors in a tokusatsu show. If so, how are they going to look back at all the commanders and Nikkes who died on the surface in the past? Haha. Did they just accidentally kill themselves filming a movie, or did they never exist at all? What makes it utterly sickening is that a boss, which the world's absolute peak military forces couldn't even dent after combining all their strength, got instantly one-shot by a single blast from 3 mechs coming out of nowhere from Mustang. This completely drags every previous character's struggles through the dirt and grinds them into the mud. Super Rappy and Red Hood's experiences, their fusions, their suffering, Anis's specialized armor, Neon's top-tier body utilizing the pinnacle of VTC tech, Matis's cutting-edge tactical upgrades from Missilis, all of it is reduced to nothing. A mech Mustang casually slapped together for a movie, modified for combat in 20 minutes, can combine and one-shot a heretic. By the way, the story never mentions any production limits on these mechs. Meaning, if Mustang wanted to, he could mass-produce hundreds of them. Every 10 combined mechs could easily kick the Queen's entire army across the map like dogs. As for all the Nikkes who fought and bled on the surface before, just irrelevant background characters, they struggled against mere grunts and died unnoticed in the wilderness for nothing. These plotlines are so profoundly idiocy that I'm losing the strength to even complain. I highly recommend watching my clips or livestream replay on June 18th on Bilibili to feel the sheer shock for yourselves. Envy evolved. They used the Counter Squad as a stepping stone to prop up the new characters. As if humiliating Rappy repeatedly in the past wasn't enough, this event's story forces the Counter Squad, who has fought on the surface for decades, witnessed countless comrades fall, and achieved legendary military feats to sit back while SU lectures us that the Ark needs heroes. Are you kidding me? The Counter Squad is famous throughout the Ark. They are the first squad in human history to successfully reclaim a piece of surface territory. They have been at the epicenter of every single Ark crisis, playing the decisive role in saving humanity. During the last blackout, Anis literally became the sole beacon of hope for the Ark. Why on earth would you ignore a living, active, legendary military unit and instead claim that the Ark needs a few movie actors to save the day? Imagine being in a brutal war of survival where morale is at an all-time low. You have a legendary ace unit sitting right there, but instead of using them for propaganda, you go find some actors, send them to the front lines to film a movie, and claim they are the real heroes? Who could possibly tolerate this writing? Traditional heroism is about self-sacrifice, selflessness, and saving others. Everyday heroism emphasizes that ordinary people can also possess a resilient heart, take responsibility, and show courage. The core of everyday heroism is extending the nobility of traditional heroism to ordinary people, making the definition universal. SU manipulated this concept. They attempted to deconstruct the nobility of traditional heroism by completely ignoring the objective difference in the level of sacrifice involved. They did this solely to give the actions of side characters the same level of nobility as the protagonist, serving their so-called ensemble cast internal favoritism writing. They wanted to create an impression that soldiers who risk their lives on the surface aren't necessarily any nobler than an Ark Sentai squad filming a tokusatsu show. They deliberately portrayed these Ark heroes as far weaker than the Counter Squad, yet possessing a more determined will, implying that the Counter Squad only succeeds because of protagonist plot armor. This highlights the lead writer's disdain for traditional heroism. It stems from a deep-seated inferiority complex, attempting to equate idols and actors with real soldiers and heroes to diminish the sacred nature of a hero. They love to label their work as a more realistic depiction of human nature while dismissing traditional heroes as fake, flawless archetypes just to legitimize cowardice. They are terrified of true nobility because it puts pressure on them. So, they deconstruct heroism so they can feel comfortable being mediocre and cowardly. They drag self-sacrificing heroic acts down to the level of mundane daily routines, while packaging mediocrity or even cynicism as true heroism. Through this, the author smuggles in their own toxic, self-serving ideology. I don't need to sacrifice or contribute anything. Whatever I do can be just as great as those who died. As long as I think I'm noble, I am noble. It doesn't matter if the Counter Squad risked their lives to save the Ark through 3 separate crises. The Ark Rangers were also present at the scene 3 times, so they claim they are true heroes too. This kind of deconstruction is nothing but a cheap infiltration of hollow, superficial Western modern trope. Greed evolved. This time, their attempt to expand the demographic targeted tokusatsu fans. And the most absurd part? The story focuses entirely on the tokusatsu actors rather than the trope, spirit, or execution of tokusatsu itself. The things actual tokusatsu fans care about most were completely tossed aside. The writers were too busy self-indulging in a story about a tokusatsu actor who truly wants to be a hero, piloting a movie prop robot onto a real battlefield while simultaneously filming a movie. What the fuck is that? This event exposes the truth behind SU's so-called demographic expansion. They don't actually care to understand the needs of a new audience. They just build things based on their own delusion. It is the absolute opposite of being grounded. Looking back, all their previous attempts at expanding the player base, the crossovers, the Yuri baits, the idol groups are exactly the same. They fail to satisfy the new target audience and alienate the existing core players. It shouldn't be called expanding the audience, it's just corporate suicide. Wrath Evolved. The complete contempt for fairness and justice was fully on display once again in Story 2. Normally, the theme of a tokusatsu show is to praise those who stand up to defend justice in real life, using media to connect the audience with the screen, wrapping it in a superhero shell to appeal to viewers. To make this heroism relatable, stories usually show that heroes face the same struggles as ordinary people, and ordinary people have the power to help heroes. This creates emotional resonance. But a fictional show should never replace or overshadow the actual living people who possess real heroic attributes, forcing a false equivalence of value. A show is meant to be a bridge connecting the ordinary with the extraordinary. How can you use it to diminish the extraordinary? Look at the garbage fire SU wrote. On the surface, they claim these arc heroes look up to Anis. In reality, they use the act of filming a movie to sugarcoat the brutal reality of fighting raptures, completely denying the direct positive impact that the Counter Squad's actual battles have on the citizens. Mustang explicitly states that their battles need to be wrapped in the shell of an arc hero tokusatsu show for entertainment, because that is what's positive for the public. This implies that the actual message the tokusatsu show is supposed to promote must be hidden away, and the fictional performance is what truly matters. The superficial shell replaces the internal essence, falling into a trap of empty formalism. They even force the Counters and Mati squads to complement these actors, making it seem like only the arc heroes possess a pure justice that genuinely inspires the public. They took a medium meant to extend the heroic spirit and turned it into a tool to tear down the actual heroes. They even made the Counters and Mati squads express admiration and jealousy toward these actors. This is the writer's twisted version of an ensemble cast. Instead of having the protagonist inspire and elevate the supporting characters, they drag the protagonist down to make everyone look flat. Just like how older characters are now treated like irrelevant background noise, these current characters, including the Arc Rangers, will eventually be discarded and used as stepping stones by SU in the future. What else is there to say? Long term, this proves that the characters this game sells are completely disposable. For a character-driven gacha game to operate like this is a rare disaster. Who would want to pay for this? Shift Up has completely shattered the trust of the player base. In this year's victory skin poll, I didn't even cast a vote. Even if I voted for my favorite bunny girl skin, knowing SU, they'd probably write a story where she works shifts dancing for NPCs at a casino all day, and the commander just hands her a bottle of water. For the mate skin that currently has the most votes, SU will probably write a story where she works herself to the bone at a maid cafe to better serve the commander, and the commander just hands her a bottle of water. I cannot stand seeing a character wearing a skin chosen with love by the players just to be humiliated by SU, so I'm out. Whichever skin wins has nothing to do with me anymore. Being pushed to this point by game dev feels like dealing with a corrupt political election. The only thing we can do now is relentlessly criticize Shift Up, attack them on every single forum. If an event is terrible, rip it to shreds. If an event does something right, acknowledge the good part, but immediately resume attacking the flaws and the past sins they have failed to correct. Because this greedy company will immediately serve up an even worse product the moment they hear a single shred of praise. The only language they understand is relentless community backlash. Otherwise, you will just be humiliated over and over and over again. Wake up! Shift Up has been treating us like garbage for 2 years. Looking at the sycophants in the community who treat their terrible writing like sacred scripture, doesn't it make you physically sick? Leave your voice under every Shift Up post. When humans discipline a stray dog, humans see it as a safety measure. Only other dogs will bark in defense, and a dog's bark is nothing but noise to humans. Keep fighting, stand your ground, and never forget, the 18th of June 2026 is the day Shift Up officially became the ultimate clown developer.